You think you're in control of your decisions. You're not. Every choice you make, every product you buy, every person you trust, is being filtered through a system you didn't design and cannot easily override. Your brain is running on ancient software, built for a world of predators and scarce resources, not for a world of sophisticated manipulation. And there are people who know exactly how to hack that software. They don't need to force you. They don't need to threaten you. They just need to nudge your own mind into betraying you. This is the story of 7 cognitive biases and how manipulators weaponize them against you every single day. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Your brain is lazy. It wants to conserve energy, so it takes shortcuts. These shortcuts are called heuristics, and for most of human history, they kept us alive. If you saw movement in the tall grass, you didn't need to calculate the probability of a predator. You just ran. That split-second judgment saved your life. But today, those same shortcuts are being exploited. Cognitive biases are the predictable errors in judgment that arise from these shortcuts. They are not flaws in a few individuals. They are features of every human mind. And once you understand them, you can see the strings that manipulators are pulling. The first bias is confirmation bias. This is the mother of all mental traps. Your brain has a built-in tendency to seek out information that confirms what you already believe, and to ignore or discard anything that challenges it. It feels good to be right. It feels safe. So your mind builds a cozy little fortress of belief and then guards the gates. In a benign scenario, this might mean you only watch news channels that agree with your politics, or you only follow social media accounts that validate your worldview. You're not evil. You're just comfortable. But a manipulator sees this fortress as a prison they can control. Consider a romantic partner who wants to isolate you from your friends. They start by planting a small seed of doubt. They might say, "Your friend Sarah seems to talk about you behind your back. Did you notice she didn't invite you to her party?" Now your brain starts working. You begin scanning your memory for evidence. You recall that one time Sarah didn't laugh at your joke. You remember that she seemed distant last week. Confirmation bias kicks in. You find more and more proof that Sarah is a bad friend. Your manipulator doesn't need to prove anything. They just need to plant the initial seed, and your own brain will water it, fertilize it, and harvest the fruit of distrust. You believe you made the decision to cut off Sarah. You didn't. Your bias did the heavy lifting for them. Now, let's talk about the halo effect. This is the tendency to let one positive trait of a person influence your overall perception of them. If someone is attractive, we assume they are also intelligent, kind, and competent. If someone is well-dressed and speaks confidently, we trust their expertise. It's a mental shortcut that lumps goodness together. In everyday life, this is why movie stars can sell you perfume. You don't know if they actually use the perfume, but they are beautiful, so the product must be good. That's the halo at work. The manipulative application is devastatingly effective. Meet the high-pressure salesperson. They are meticulously dressed. They have a firm handshake. They maintain perfect eye contact. They appear successful, which immediately triggers the halo effect. You assume they are honest. They then show you a product. It has flaws, but you don't see them because the halo is blinding you. They might even say, "I personally use this every day." Your brain thinks, "This successful, trustworthy person uses it. It must be a great product." You sign the contract. Later, you realize the product is overpriced and underperforms. But by then, the halo has faded, and you're left with regret. The manipulator didn't sell you a product. They sold you a halo. The third bias is the sunk cost fallacy. This is a masterpiece of irrationality. It is the tendency to continue an endeavor once an investment of money, effort, or time has been made, even when continuing is clearly not in your best interest. The logic is twisted. You think, "I've already spent so much on this. I can't stop now." But the rational mind knows that the past investment is gone. It's a sunk cost. It should not influence future decisions. Yet it does, powerfully. Imagine you have bought a non-refundable ticket to a concert. On the day of the show, you are exhausted and sick. The logical choice is to stay home and rest. But the sunk cost fallacy whispers, "You spent $80 on that ticket. You have to go." You go. You hate every minute. You feel worse. The $80 is gone either way, but your brain can't let it go. Now, let's see how a master manipulator uses this. They get you to commit early. In a relationship, this might mean moving in together before you are ready. Once you share a lease, you have sunk costs. You've paid the deposit, you've moved your furniture. Then the manipulation begins. Your partner becomes controlling or dismissive or emotionally abusive. You want to leave, but your brain screams, "But we just moved in together. I spent so much time finding this apartment. My family helped me move. I can't throw that all away." The manipulator knows this. They deliberately create shared investments to trap you. They ask for small favors, then larger ones. Each favor is a brick in the wall of sunk costs. By the time you want to escape, your own investment makes you feel like you can't. You stay, you suffer, you call it loyalty, they call it leverage. The fourth bias is the fundamental attribution error. This is the tendency to explain someone else's behavior based on their character, while explaining our own behavior based on our situation. When you cut someone off in traffic, you think, "I'm late for an important meeting." When someone cuts you off, you think, "What a selfish jerk." We are generous with our own excuses and stingy with others. In a benign setting, this leads to petty arguments and misunderstandings. You assume your coworker is rude because they didn't say hello, when in fact they were distracted by a family emergency. Manipulators invert this error to their advantage. They set up situations where you will fail, and then use your failure to define your character. Imagine a boss who gives you an impossible deadline. They know you can't finish on time. When you miss the deadline, they don't say, "The deadline was unrealistic." They say, "You are not reliable, you lack commitment." They have made a fundamental attribution error about you, and they force you to believe it. You start to internalize it. Maybe I am lazy. Maybe I am incompetent. You work harder. You accept lower pay. You accept worse conditions. The manipulator has shifted the blame from the situation to your character. They are not the villain. You are the failure. It's a cruel and effective gaslighting technique built on a simple cognitive bias. The fifth bias is optimism bias. This is the belief that bad things are less likely to happen to you than to other people. You know car accidents happen, but you don't wear your seatbelt on short drives. You know smoking causes cancer, but you think you'll be the one who is fine. This bias keeps us moving forward. Without it, we would be paralyzed by the risks of everyday life. It's a necessary illusion. Manipulators prey on this. They sell you dreams. This investment is guaranteed. You know investments can fail. But optimism bias says, "Others lose money, I won't." The manipulator feeds this bias. They show you testimonials of success, never failure. They paint a picture of a future so bright that you ignore the shadows. In a relationship, a manipulator might promise, "We will be so happy together, I will never hurt you." Your optimism bias grabs this promise. You ignore the red flags. You ignore the past behavior. Because a bad future is something that happens to other people, not to you. The manipulator knows you want to believe. They use your hope as a weapon. They ask you to trust them, knowing that your own optimism will override your caution. The fall is harder because you never saw it coming. You were too busy believing in a better future to see the trap in the present. The sixth bias is anchoring. This is the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information offered when making decisions. That first piece of information is the anchor, and all subsequent judgments are made relative to it. Consider a car dealership. The salesperson shows you a car with a sticker price of $50,000. That is the anchor. Then they show you a slightly less equipped model for $45,000. That feels like a deal. You didn't know the fair price was $35,000. But compared to the anchor, 45 seems reasonable. You buy it. You feel smart. You were anchored. Manipulators use anchoring to shape your entire sense of value. In a salary negotiation, they might offer you $40,000 when the market rate is $55,000. That 40 is the anchor. You then negotiate up to 45, and you feel victorious. You have been anchored to a lower starting point. You never even considered that you deserved 60. The anchor has shifted your entire frame of reference. In a romantic context, a manipulator might set an anchor of extreme behavior early on. They might be incredibly generous and attentive for the first month. That is the anchor. Then they slowly withdraw. They become cold. They forget your birthday. But compared to the anchor of extreme generosity, the current behavior feels like a minor lapse. You think, they used to be so wonderful. They are just going through a phase. You tolerate the abuse because your anchor was set so high. The manipulator has taught you to be grateful for less. The seventh and final bias is the decoy effect. This is a subtle and diabolical trick. It occurs when your preference between two options changes when a third, asymmetrically dominated option is introduced. In other words, an option that is clearly worse than one of the others, but not necessarily worse than both. This decoy makes the better option shine brighter. Think of a movie theater. Small popcorn is $3. Large popcorn is $7. Most people buy small. Now, the theater introduces a medium popcorn for $6.50. It's almost as expensive as the large, but much smaller. Suddenly, the large popcorn looks like incredible value. You buy the large. The medium was never meant to be sold. It was a decoy. Its purpose was to make the large look like a bargain. Manipulators use the decoy effect to steer your choices. A real estate agent shows you 3 houses. House A is perfect but expensive. House B is cheap but terrible. House C is mediocre but priced in the middle. You would naturally be drawn to House A or C. But then the agent introduces House D. It is the same price as House A, but smaller with a worse location. It is a decoy. Now, House A looks even more attractive. You pay the high price, feeling like you've made the best choice. You have been manipulated into choosing the option that the agent wanted you to choose all along. The decoy made your decision for you. So where does this leave you? Are you doomed to be a puppet? No. Awareness is the first step to freedom. The manipulator depends on you being blind to your own biases. Once you see the strings, you can start to cut them. The key is to audit your own thinking. When you feel a strong emotion about a decision, pause. Ask yourself, what bias might be at work here? Are you defending a bad investment because of sunk costs? Are you trusting a stranger because of the halo effect? Are you ignoring warning signs because of optimism bias? Force yourself to argue the other side. Bring in a devil's advocate, even if it is just your own rational mind. Slow down. Manipulators rely on speed and emotion. They need you to make a quick decision before your rational brain catches up. Do not give them that gift. Take a day, sleep on it. Run the numbers without the anchor. Look for the decoy. Your brain is not your enemy. It is a powerful machine with evolved shortcuts, but those shortcuts can be hijacked. The manipulator is not a genius. They are simply exploiting predictable patterns. When you learn the patterns, you become unpredictable. You become immune. The final bias to master is the bias against manipulation itself. Once you know the game, you stop playing. You don't argue. You don't get angry. You simply see the trap and walk around it. The manipulator will be confused. They expected you to fall, but you didn't. Because now you know the 7 ways your mind can betray you, and you choose not to let it. The control you thought you had, it was never really there, but now it can be. The question is, will you take it?